Fernand and the Castle of the Magic Egg, an historical novel. Foreword. This fictional book that you have chose to open, dear reader, had a small fantasy story before it was completed. When I started writing this book was the year 2005. I already had many hours of reading school stories, classic novels, and of course, some influence of the television series of the 80s. 14 years later, that draft is revised and edited to be published as a special work for lovers of fictionalized history. When testing for the first time in the genre of historical fantasy novel, I can't realize that it has cost me much more to finish it than I thought when I started the challenge. First, I had to investigate the biographies of all the contemporary characters at the time of Promonet, our main character, which is one of the group of European kings and queens that are best referenced by the chroniclers themselves. Historians and translators who for decades have left their valuable works at the service of humanity to be included in the catalogs of public domain libraries and internet virtual network sites. Collating the important events and bringing them to a dramatic thread requires a lot of study and patient assimilation to recreate a realistic time and at the same time full of fantastic myths of beings, objects, and explanations of events that almost seem to make us believe that really the beginnings of the known world they were populated by beings half human or half animal or half bird. Then we must let the work rest for a while, as much as it costs us both to mature until we know that nothing, or at least little, is lacking in order to be presented to the audience of inveterate readers. Within the literature of historical setting there will always be pending time spaces to be addressed by the new creators. Some such as costumbrismo, Civil War and Francoism have mudded the pages of hundreds of books by authors of historical themes that have been highlighted even in exclusive contests for the genre. The peplum film, hand in hand with new technologies, recreates worlds that beyond the marvelous reality, combine elements of past events with fantastic dimensions as we never read before. We saw and listened to our senses. A young audience of readers becomes addicted to a movement that, although it seems to be positioned and lethargic then, it has not stopped resurging again with renewed titles that do not stop exhausting all possible premises. And we like that because we have a style that is so unique and different to which we let ourselves be captivated, from time to time, between characters that become commercial around the world. Without delving into an exhaustive tour of the classic works that give us one-arc worldviews between the truthfulness of history and what is merely fiction, used as a setting resource, we can mention other masterpieces so acclaimed and remembered for their places stopped in the wild unique as those of Mark Twain, Terence E. Moysh, Marguerite Yourcenar, and also those that you as well-versed readers suggest. In them a set of narrative elements is exposed, that although they fulfill the historical reports with updated data, that from the moment in which they are written they begin, as the passage of the dust that covers the libraries, to stop being contemporary, and they will arrive so too. time for the future readers of tomorrow. Through historical work, will we be faithful narrators of our time? Are we ready, as creative doors that together, to overcome the barriers that the unstoppable god of time possess caravans of generations who ignore our words until they disappeared, or will be willing to relive them until the fatigue of the fans? Surely, the future time will answer that question. The author